This is the OverReaction podcast.
Welcome, Renee.
How are you, Jeremy?
Oh, it's good. How are well, it's just like the end of year, right? Like, so
Yeah.
everybody, or I guess we're into the new year, but
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I don't take a lot of time off for holidays. I mean,
I start
like
getting
Christmas.
itchy. I get itchy
like-
after like 5 days. It's like I need to
Yeah.
start. Yeah.
Yeah, Christmas and New Year, certainly I'm not working or doing almost anything, but the day before, day after, I don't know about you. I ran a LinkedIn poll. I think it was over the summer, and it was like, hey, what are people's tendencies when it comes to travel? In fact, Matea, can you look up on one of our polls in our newsroom or content hub? I think you actually produced a kind of an infographic on it about what do people do when they on vacation. Do they check email? Do they just check out completely? Because for me, I can't relax, Renee, if I'm on vacation knowing I'm going to come back to 15,000 emails. I'm like, I may not do calls. Like, I'll try to do anything. I'm not going to do calls, whatever. Yeah. But I've got to check a couple days emails just to clear it up. Then I can actually relax.
Have you ever come back from a holiday and just regretted taking a holiday?
Yeah.
It's like, this was not worth it. It really just wasn't worth it. So, yeah, no.
Yeah, and for me, the worst holidays are the ones that are the longest, because then you get into the routine. So anything longer than about 5 or 6 days, I'm now become vacation Jeremy, and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to go back anymore. Oh, there we go. She's pulling up. Yes, scroll down, Matea, and let's see how many people are more like me. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I would say I might be more than once or twice a day, but I don't know that I'm constantly. I think you might need another, like if there's something like 3 to 5, I don't know, is that considered constantly?
No, I'd say constantly someone where you're probably every few minutes. Yeah, basically you're working, you're just not doing phone calls. Thanks, Tay. You can click that off. But yeah, that's I figure there's only about 12% of people look like her so that we're just like, forget it. I'll just dig out. Now, of those, I did notice when I went back and looked at everyone participated, there's almost no executives that did it. Because you're like, you can't. You're like, no, Renee, we had this thing happen. This, and you're like, well, too bad. I'll see you in a week.
Honestly, so it was funny because I'm actually not scheduled to be back to work technically until Monday. But this morning I had some time. Well, I had time all week, to be honest with you, but I had some time this morning with a coffee, and, some of my colleagues are coming back into office and emails are coming through, and I would reply to an email and I would immediately get someone who would reach out to me and say, you're on PTO, you shouldn't be working. And it's like, it's just easier to enable you to do your work while I'm not there. So yeah, I'm with you. It's just much easier. Much less stressful as well when I know that what's happening anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
So speaking of that, how much follow-up have you had to do since RSNA?
Oh, so now you didn't go to RSNA this year, did you?
No, it's I think this is only like the second time since 2003. Gone.
So this year was my 24th RSNA. Cool. And of course I've done it, you know this, Jeremy, but I've done this over a number of different vendors and a number of different companies. But I guess in one way, in my way at least, I've been lucky enough that I haven't had to miss one. And RSNA was really interesting this year. It's been a bit, I would say the last 5 years, especially during COVID, the energy behind RSNA it felt a bit, I don't know, dry and stale, and everyone kind of wondered, is this really what we're in for RSNA going forward? I have to say this year, like there's so much energy and so much momentum, which was really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I had a great time. It was my first RSNA with Canon. It was, we had a sweet little booth with some, amazing creative, and we really had a good time. But there's been a ton of follow-up. And I think, I think everyone was energized. I think everyone that I was talking to on the show floor, from a vendor to an attendee, was really energized. And their response to kind of post RSNA conversations has been really engaging and really interesting. And it's nice to see it for RSNA. I was worried about the conference as a whole for a little while, but this year
So this increased energy you're talking about has been lacking for the last 4 or 5 years. How much of it was across the board at the conference versus maybe just Canon?
So, and again, so I've done RSNA with a lot of different vendors, well, actually, that sounds terrible to say that, a lot. With a number of different vendors, I've been at RSNA. And
yeah, let's go through the list. Agfa, Hitachi Data, Nuance, TerraRecon, ADOC, or AI Doc, I never know how to say.
ADOC, yeah.
ADOC, Sectra, and now CMI.
And now Canon.
I mean, come on.
So I would honestly tell you that and it wasn't even just an RSNA thing, because I was noticing it at the big shows, some of the little shows, the HIMSS and the SIM of the world. There was just this, it almost felt like the air was coming out of the balloon, and I think people felt tired. I think they felt worn out by them. I think they felt that they were coming in every year and it was the same, blah, I guess you would call it, RSNA, they always talk real solutions not available, right? So I think like the last 6 or 7 years has been a lot of that. There's just been a lot of, are you selling this thing? Are you selling it for real money? Are you giving it away? Like, what are you doing? So I have to say that I feel like, especially all the folks that I spoke to, and granted, they had to come to me because I was mobility challenged at RSNA this year. But, what I was really seeing were people were kind of excited about, what RSNA was really bringing to the table. But I think I think the big thing that's happened in the last couple of years is this idea of, I think healthcare providers are starting to separate between the shiny object stuff and the real stuff. And I think they're starting to settle into the real stuff, and they're letting the shiny object stuff kind of play out and pretend, and, but they're really interested in kind of, hey, company XYZ, please meet me where I'm at versus where I'm going. So RSNA was really interesting from that perspective. And, of course, I'm in the informatics side of the Canon business. The big Canon booth was rocking. And we were really excited to welcome back a lot of folks into the informatics side. But it was a really good time. Honestly, I have to say, in 24 years, I think this may have been one of my favorites. And it might just be because I was, holed up in a hotel room from 5 o'clock on, but but anyways, it was good. It was a great show. You should have been there. Weather was great.
I think, really?
Yeah.
Chicago?
Yeah.
In December?
Yeah. It was dry. Wow. It was cold. There was no snow, almost no rain. It was a nice time to be in Chicago, at least for me. So I've had some bad ones, but
yeah, I've had a lot of bad ones.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the reasons I didn't go. I mean, we're really busy at Reaction, so we're bringing on a lot of new customers and stuff like that. So that became more of a priority. But I could have made it, but I thought, O'Hare Airport, all the traffic.
Yeah.
I'm like, taking the Ubers and the whatever. I just said, I just don't know. And the fact that I think I've got caught up in the malaise a bit too, where I'm so sick of, we'll talk about this a little bit about marketing, where I'm like, because things you'd think once I get in my 50s, I'm like, stuff would quit bothering me. Nah, it bothers me more than ever.
Yeah.
Where I walk around and I shouldn't get triggered by this stuff, but I don't like bad marketing. Yeah. I don't like everybody. I swear everyone uses the same PR firm.
And they're holding a piece of film.
Yeah. And then there's all these claims, and then it's like, hey, cool, why don't you, in the demos, it's like, gosh, you guys don't even know how to do demos. And I'm not a buyer. Like companies like you guys use our platform. So we're not buyers, but I go to visit customers like you and others, but then I'm very interested in the tech. I like to see what everybody's doing. And so I'll get demos and everybody's demos the same. They follow the same script.
Yep.
And I'd rather have rather than just sit down and, okay, let's walk you through this case and I'll look at this lumens, I can measure, blah, blah, blah. It'd almost be like, hey, radiologist, rad tech, whoever, IR doc, like them saying, do that. This is what I do. Walk me through that. And I just don't see that very often. And so the messaging is all bland. The color's all bland and everybody matches each other.
Yep.
And then you talked about, there seems to be a disconnect between, hey, these are my problems right now, instead of, hey, shiny new objects. Here's in a couple of years, here's works in progress interface. And I love AI, huge. We have AI on our platform. You guys have AI. AI is everywhere, but it's almost like AI seems to be the destination. Like, no, AI is simply a better way to get to the destination. All the marketing and branding and positioning is like, you got to get to AI. I'm like, okay, what does AI do for me? Right? It's almost like the old UPS commercial. What has Brown done for you? It's like, okay, I don't care about your tech. Please just talk to me about how you're going to help us be more efficient, deal with staff shortages, be able to reduce costs, increase revenue, whatever it is, quality. That's all I want to talk about. Just show me that. Don't talk about your tech, because to me, it feels like you have something to hide.
Yeah. And so I couldn't agree more. And, what's under the cover, I think, is almost less important. I mean, I think AI is certainly, from a future perspective, going to be the underlying core for a lot of this technology that's being built. But does it really matter if it's AI? Does it really matter? Right. So, but I'll tell you.
Or what flavor of AI?
Yeah,
people that are arguing like machine learning isn't really AI. I'm like,
no, exactly. Right.
Is it helping automate and get faster and better?
Yeah.
Then I don't really care. Don't tell me how the sausage is made. I just don't.
Yeah. And so, but I had a radiologist come up to me. I've known him for a long time, and don't get me wrong, he's a huge advocate for AI, and you'll see him up on stage all the time talking about it. And, there was a time where, we really leaned into this idea of, hey, Mr. Physician, we can help you do more with less. We can help you, with your throughput. We can help you with your efficiency. We can help you with all of these things. And, he and I were having this conversation. He said, you know what I hear, Renee? I just hear that you want me to do more work. That's all I hear. All I hear is that you want me, like, instead of doing 200 cases, which is crazy, 200 cases in a day, now you're going to give me tools that will allow me to do 250 cases in a day. And how is that better for me? I mean, the more I hear now, I think especially it doesn't even have to be AI. I think, the realness of technology, and what it actually can do, they just want to go home, right? They're like, I would like to do maybe 195 cases a day, but really feel good about these cases that I'm running. I don't want to have to second guess myself. I don't want to have to, learn a new technology. I don't want to have to swivel my chair. I'd like to actually go home on time. That's really my goal. So that was one of the things that I was really kind of hearing on the show floor. And I'm hearing this from physicians, not just here at Canon, but certainly over the last 5 years, this idea of, how is technology actually making my personal life better? How is it making my professional life better? How do I, enjoy what I'm doing? And, it was only coincidentally that this physician is also a huge advocate for, radiology, well, physicians, but radiologists in this particular scenario as founders of, startups, and, they're all, I don't want to say they're all, but they're starting to move into this stream of, I don't know if I want to practice medicine anymore because I can do this and it feels almost as good. And I don't have, all this swirl that happens around me all the time. So it was interesting that, 6 years ago, the pull at RSNA was AI for sure. I think there's a much smaller group of them right now that are really pulling in any of that interest. And I think physicians and healthcare systems are starting to see how to disconnect the shiny object from the, where am I right now? How do you meet me where I am right now? So it was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because really the promise of AI is enabling people to do better jobs with lower stress levels, right? Especially in healthcare. And it's awesome that you brought that up. I think it's really important. Where that radiologist like, hey, everything I'm hearing is just how can we do more and more. And it's like, and there's going to be burnout, and like it or not, we're nowhere near, even in radiology where it's just reading images, where AI could ever actually replace a person. So far away. It really should be about quality of the work, the output should be the focus.
Right.
It should be more with less, should be how is this truly helping improve the output for obviously for the patient, number one.
Yes.
It should always be that should be kind of the filter, the lens through which everything runs. How is this benefiting the patient? And then right from it is how is that benefiting the clinician or the healthcare worker? So number one, the patient, number two, the healthcare worker, then number three, did we make more money or did we reduce costs or whatever it is? You kind of have to have all three. You have the hat trick, so to speak. You have to get to that point, but
happy physicians make happy patients, make happy patients. I couldn't agree more, right? So these folks spend a lot of time and a lot of stress and a lot of valuable, probably personal time to actually achieve some of these these outputs in a way that really help their patients. And we really need to make their lives easier, not just their professional lives, right? But their whole lives easier. So
absolutely. And that really is the promise of software in general, because AI is just software. It's just it's the next phase in software. It's not a new species. It's just the evolution of what now exists. And I wish more companies were kind of upfront about that, but to the same standpoint, I don't think they understand themselves, right? They're just kind of reflective of kind of the mania of the moment of it. You get caught up in it. I think it's the reason why we go back to my favorite whipping boy, whipping girl, whatever, is just the kind of the herd mentality in marketing where there isn't any, we can get into this in a bit, where there just isn't, I call marketing I think I've told you before, the adult supervision. It's the adult they're the adult in the room when done correctly, because you have these really smart finance people and these really smart tech guys and et cetera, but they forget the whole aspect of, okay, let's run this through how this is going to be perceived. We need to put ourselves in the actual mind and position of the user, of the buyer, of the people we're interacting with. And marketing typically looks at it as a higher emotional IQ, a higher social IQ, a higher empathy IQ, so to speak. And it's, okay, how do we bring this? So AI is what? Our product is what? Our solution is what? It all comes down to how is what we're doing actually helping? How is what we're doing improving a situation beyond what they currently have? But the problem is when I see so much marketing, messaging, positioning, whether it's a case study or whether it's whatever, you have to dig. You make the reader dig to find that out rather than being really, it's almost like it says, no, we have to fill up. It's like your professor, this has to be a 10,000 word essay. And you're like, I guess I got to fill the 10,000 words before I get to it, rather than make it really concise. And I think really compelling.
You know what's interesting, and so I've been doing this a little while, and I will often get young people or middle management people come into me, and I guess asking just about the industry and about how to be really successful in the industry. And you and I both know that diagnostic imaging, in radiology even specifically, is a pretty niche industry, but it's also quite large. But it's not easy. It's not easy to learn. And it's not like selling Levi's or the latest Toyota. So this idea that you need to not only develop some subject matter expertise in a really challenging space to learn, but you need to develop some empathy for what's happening in that dark room. And if that means that you're sitting in the chair beside the radiologist for 2 days and just watching, and what does the impact of this dark room mean to you? What is the impact of the 12 people who are walking in and asking you questions or phoning you on the phone? Like, what is that empathy that you are developing? And that's one of the things that I've really noticed probably in the last 10 years when it comes to marketing is, you're right, they're all the same. They're all using the same words. We're improving patient outcomes. We're improving the delivery of healthcare. We're going to leverage big data. We're like, we've seen it all, right? We all use the same words. We all use the same photos. We all use the same colors. White, that white with acid green was everywhere for years. But this idea that if you don't really understand and empathize with what these physicians are facing every day, and therefore what their patients are facing every day, how can you actually have a conversation with them? And getting around this idea of a data sheet should have 800 words and no less. Really just, you have to kind of throw that out the window. So I always tell folks in marketing, in this space, the best thing you can do earlier in your career is, number one, work for a lot of vendors, or at least understand a lot of vendors. I mean, if you want to be 25 years at the same company, go for it, but learn other parts of this space so that you can understand the whole experience that these physicians are having. But at the same time, 5 years, be a marketer, really learn, really listen, ask the questions. Ask every question, ask them twice, ask a physician, ask the CEO, ask the rad tech. I mean, you can't understand what their day is like until you ask those million questions. And how do you market to them? How do you speak to them is fully dependent on your ability to kind of understand that piece of it, right? And some of it comes with time, but it's interesting. So, and no acid green, no more acid green. Let's just say that. So
and no more 360. Remember, everything was fusion and then 360 for a while. It's like Nuance you guys did. I remember I can't remember who it was. It was at Nuance at the time, and you guys had your fusion 360. When I walked in and I went to whoever the head of marketing was, I'm like, seriously? She's like, I know, but
not me.
So, no, it wasn't you. Oh, we had a good time with it. But you brought up empathy, which is really good. And what's essential is authentic, genuine empathy that isn't toxic. Because sometimes you get empathy that's so people try to empathize so much they lose the forest for the tree that they're focused on. And you see that so often, where all these companies that consistently every year a new raft of companies from outside healthcare come into it. And then most of them don't succeed because they see these problems that the radiologists have or somebody else has. And they're like, oh, it's so inefficient and it's so XYZ or whatever it is. And because they don't have a strong domain knowledge in healthcare, not just healthcare, but that specific area they're trying to solve within diagnostic imaging or within the ER or wherever they're trying to come into. And they don't understand, like, a lot of this dysfunction is literally baked into it. They can't get out of it. their way they get reimbursed, the radiology benefit managers and pharmacy benefit, all this other kind of stuff that personally I think should go away. I think it's horrible, but it isn't until it gets legislated away. Like the radiologist, whatever, I can't get around that. This is how it bills. This is how I get paid. There's no other way for this to change. And you see it with a lot of these startups and AI companies. I've actually lost track of colleagues of mine and friends of mine that have gone to work as an executive within these AI companies. And it's the commercial. They're going in as the head of marketing or the head of sales or biz dev. And then they leave after 6 months or a year. And I'm like, Brian, why'd you leave? He's like, because all these Silicon Valley guys and gals, they have this great tech, but they don't know how to translate it to business. They fundamentally don't get healthcare in the US. They don't have a clue what's going on.
Yeah.
And so they keep moving us down the path. And I keep telling them that's not going to work. Well, our tech is great. Yes, your tech's great. Our tech's great. But our pricing model and everything else doesn't map to how healthcare gets paid. Hence, we're not going to be successful. And so you see this constant churn where it's great. You can have the best tool and you can have the best intentions and be the most empathetic person and company. But if you don't have deep domain expertise in the area you're trying to serve, that's all meaningless.
And you just hit the nail on the area you're trying to serve, right? So, it's a great big world, and, you and I both come from Canada, so we know that the healthcare system is different here.
Yep.
A lot of these technologies, a good part of these technologies are coming from outside of the United States. And sometimes they're starting, right? That's where they're founded, where, the US, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe is the only fully private healthcare system in the world, I believe. So how does a technology that's been built in a country, for instance, that has public healthcare or some type of dual system, how do they then build a product that fits into the reimbursement model here in the United States? I mean, it's really challenging.
They have to hire an American.
Yeah.
There's just no other. There's no other way. So the U.S. is even harder because it's the largest private. But then if you look at Medicare, it's over $1 trillion.
Yeah.
If you look at Medicaid, so it's really big private with employer-based insurance, which is probably another thing that needs to go away.
Yeah.
It needs to change. Like your health insurance is tied to your job, whether you have a job or not. Seems a little problematic. But I don't want to get too far. And I love bashing politics. I'll try not to do that though. But so the US is really weird. But the problem most of these companies have, because I worked with Siemens and I've worked with Toshiba, who used to, now is Canon, and Philips and all these other companies. And it was so frustrating to watch is the disconnect between the factory and the field. And so often the factory that's based in Asia or that's based in Europe doesn't listen to the field. They think the sales and marketing people are stupid. And they'll keep coming back and saying, hey, I know, but the US is the biggest market by far, by far. We want to be successful here. This is what needs to change. And the factory goes 9. No, not going to do it. No. There's nothing wrong with our product. The problem isn't us. It's you. You just need to find a better way to do it. And it's like, you can't. You're going to be successful in the US. I've advised a couple companies. I still do some advisory work here or there. Typically, it's for either startups, but a lot of it's been companies trying to come from. One was from Canada trying to get in the US, didn't work for them, and a couple were from Europe trying to get in the US. And it's the same problem every time. And usually after 6 months, I'm like, I don't know what there's no secret sauce.
No.
If you're going to be successful here, you have to hire a team based in the US and give them a couple years and basically shut up and listen to them, because they're not going to just tell you something that goes. Or you need to acquire a company in the US and make them your head of commercial operations. Like,
but it's not right. But it's not just about having sales and marketing in the US, I would say, because I totally agree with that. But if you're going to develop a solution, if you're going to be a startup and a founder and you're going to develop a solution, and you should absolutely develop a solution based on what you believe is to be your regional needs. So let's pretend it's Germany, and you build a solution that fits a German need. I think that there always needs to be this sense of, where do we want this product to eventually grow to? And US is always going to be on everyone's map. And therefore, as we are envisioning this solution, as we are, creating plans around this solution, how do we make sure it fits into that need, even if it's only 10 years from now? I think that's part of the issue, right? So the regionalization, I hate to say it, if you can't get the US right, then you're just not going to be successful in terms of growth. You have to get the US right off the bat, even if you're not planning to sell it in the US right away, right? So
yeah, that's a good point, because in the US, you kind of don't get a second crack. Like if you come out and, because I don't know about other, I've been gone from Canada too much for too long. Definitely done work overseas, but just not nearly as much as the US. There seems to be a little bit more forgiveness. Like if you don't kind of get it right, they're like, oh, whatever. The US, because I think everyone tries to sell here, people get really more skeptical of anything else, that whether it's a startup or a company from overseas, or companies coming outside of healthcare, they've been burned so much. They're like, are you a carpetbagger? Like, are you here for the long haul? Because we've seen, I can't go with your packs or with your wrists or whatever. And all of a sudden you're not here in a year. I can't risk that. And so the radar is way more finely tuned in the US, and the spidey sense is like ready to go off. Like if they get a sense at all that you don't know US healthcare or this space really, really well, they're like, you're dead.
Well, and that comes down to the empathy thing again, right? So if you could have the best technology, and I've seen it over and over and over again. You could have the best technology out there. If it's not tuned to be empathetic to not only the needs of healthcare as an overarching umbrella, but to the providers who are providing it, to the patients who are receiving it, to how it's being funded, to how it's being reimbursed, to how it's being accessed, to where it's being accessed, it doesn't feel tuned, I guess, to the United States. And and I don't think this is a US thing versus another country thing. I think I could safely say here in in Canada that we would, when we are looking for things, when we're looking to make big purchases, we want to know that it works in Canada, in my market, in my space, in how we work. And therefore, that's why successes in Canada don't always translate well or work as well in the United States. We're different countries. We have different needs and, different goals, right? So again, in my mind, marketing, if you ever want to go into the US market, especially in the healthcare space, if you ever want to go into the US market, your marketing, your sales, your business objectives, they all need to show an extreme level of knowledge and empathy to what's happening in the US, or it's going to be really hard for you to be successful. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Tell me if you've seen this. Maybe my company sees it more just because of what we do, because we have a lot of companies that use our platform to run their like voice of customer and all that stuff, feature function research and post go live, all that stuff. And they also use it for a lot of market research, because they're like, hey, we're just blowing way too much money on research firms or consultants, which everybody is. What we've seen is a really worst practice is these companies that are based in Europe, or they have even European subsidiaries and they're based in the US. They've brought back this, I think really cripples their business, GDPR mindset into where they're going, oh, hang on a second. If every one of our customers haven't opted in to participate in a customer survey, we can't send to them. Like, that doesn't exist here.
Yeah.
like that. I get Germany for sure.
Yeah.
Like Germany's a terrifying place to do literally anything, even B2B, which there are exemptions in GDPR where you can reach out to if it's a business email address and it's about they're already a current customer, but everyone is like, oh no, we have to worry about it. And so we have customers here, the hoops they have to jump through. I'm like, so they're a current, so this list you've uploaded in the platform, you're going to go out and just get some MPS, or I don't even know what it is, some pre-user meeting. Yeah. We want to make sure we're going to have the right kind of sessions at our user meetings. So we want to get some quick feedback from our customers. And the hoops they have to go through on it, like that. Okay, number one, it doesn't exist. Number two, that's a really bad policy, because there's some companies that they don't even get feedback from their customers directly anymore, because they're like, no, we just have to buy an anonymous report to see what our customer sat is, because we're terrified. And what's interesting is all of those customers have to jump through those hoops, and every one of them, none of them are market leaders. Right. They're all laggers in growth. Yeah. They're not winning the new deals. And it's like it's almost like you're using an excuse to import things here. It's like, hey, in Germany, do what makes sense in Germany. Don't allow anything else. It shouldn't even factor in to your decision making. Same thing if you're in the US or Canada. What makes sense for that market? Follow and adapt to that market. Don't allow other things to taint. Like, well, no, our corporate culture is XYZ. It's like that's just dumb.
Yeah. And I was just gonna, so when it comes to communicating with your customers, again, I'll go back to the line, meet them where they're at, right? So if you have to adjust by country, do it. If you can leverage a country that potentially has more open policies with regards to communication, and you do so responsibly. I mean, you're not, we don't want to be
for sure.
For sure. But every time I speak like at RSNA on the show floor, Renee, when you tell me that you're going to make my life more efficient, you're really just telling me I'm, going to have to do more work. That's like gold information that you should be able to have these conversations with and be able to collect this information and because it helps you build the empathy, which is really what we are really striving to do. Otherwise I'd go work at Levi's. I mean, it's really just, that's why I sit in this space, and you adjust. And there are some organizations that have no rules, despite the rules, they have no rules, and they make it harder for the rest of us who are trying to be responsible and who are trying to be responsive and who understand that, there is an industry of users who want to share their feedback and who want to share their information because they, like us, like Canon, we want to do better. We want to deliver better. We want to build better. We want you to have a better experience, and we want you to go home at 5 o'clock and have dinner with your family. So it's hard to, I've been with organizations that take a more peanut butter spread kind of around that rule. And, then they're really cutting off their nose, right? Despite the face. So you need to have a strategy that allows for that kind of bilateral communication while not, breaking the rules and really being a responsible, company. The other thing I'm finding actually is, and customers are super excited to be able to kind of find a face to talk to. I mean, you find other ways, right? If it's show floor stuff, if it's user conference stuff, if it's, literally picking up the phone, we'll utilize our support team all the time, to actually just, hey, how are you? What's happening in your life, and give me some feedback. So there are ways that you can collect the information, but definitely, trying to find ways to impart why this information collection is really important and how it circles back, right? So it's not just about how do we market to you, it's how do we build better for you. So
and it's I like what you said, because to me there are things that organizations are going to have to do. Yeah. And it's you talk about like personalized medicine, which really isn't happening. I think eventually it will.
It will
like
eventually.
One of those buzzwords. But it's the same thing where it's personalized business relationships, because you're gonna have a lot of radiologists say, I don't want more work. And you have some other twisted buggers that I know that they are coin operated, and they are just, they don't sleep.
Yeah.
They only sleep. They love it. So they're like, I do 250 cases a day, studies a day. Dude, sign me up.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Can your solutions help with that? Yes, it can.
Yeah.
And then you build a persona profile around that person. Say, hey, this radiologist, she is obsessed with more cases. Okay, then. And then this person is way more about quality of life. So are you building personas, real individual customer personas? And then are you building account level personas?
Right.
Because there are certain, I'm finding that same kind of thing. I'm like, I just know that some of the people that I interact with at our customer base, this is when they respond. This is the time they respond. And this is what they do.
Right.
And so I have to adapt my behavior. And so then it's like, how do I get my company to adapt the behavior? How do we make it a notation? This is this individual. This is what they are like. This is what they like. These are their preferences. And then at the account level, because we have some accounts, we have to literally drag them kicking and screaming to do the right thing.
Right.
Like it's just this, and then at some point we have to look at, hey, do we even want to sign a renewal? Like, are we so culturally misaligned where we're like, we care more about your customers and your success in the market than you do? This is bananas. Like, there's a disconnect. But then we have others where they want communication constantly from us. Constantly. We're like, okay, great. How do we adapt to that? And that's like a kind of the next evolution. It's where I think AI and some other kind of stuff, as things get smarter. Yeah. I think that's I don't know what your take is, but I think that's inevitable.
So, it's interesting because, you and I, we only have to kind of open up our personal email and there'll probably be 50 pieces of spam, generally from retail. And you tread this line where you're like, I don't want to be that, right? And my customers don't want me to be that. But at the same time, here's what I've discovered about especially this space, right? Especially when you're with a vendor who displays empathy and humility and who understands the part that their software can play in the lives of the users, that there is a benefit to healthcare, to promoting a technology that actually delivers, and selling a technology, actually, on the dotted line, selling a technology that benefits healthcare. Because when we can build that software, when we can sell that software or those solutions, we as a company can grow, and we can then continue to develop on that software that can then continue to benefit healthcare, right? So there are most would say, I'm using a product and I want this product to grow and develop and get better, because in 10 years, this thing that I'm working on with now and I love is probably going to be 1,000% better. And how do I, as a user, help that be accomplished, right? So, if you stopped selling and stopped marketing, you wouldn't have a company anymore. And now you wouldn't have a product that you love anymore, right?
Yeah, of course.
There's a real symbiotic relationship, I think, that goes back and forth. And it's the same with you, Jeremy, and reaction data, and this idea that if we can help an industry understand what is available to them, us, another vendor, it almost doesn't matter. But if we can help them see what is available to them as a potential, where are they today? Where do they want to be in 10 years? It helps these folks, the physicians and their administrators who are kind of signing the checks, and the patients that they're serving. They understand where they can be, right? Where they can grow and how they can move down a path. And it benefits everybody, right? It hopefully it benefits everyone. And it's the same idea with reaction data. It's this idea of, if I can be on this path and I know that I can, continue to demonstrate success, ongoing, then I know where I can be in 5 years and I can still take what I need right now. Right. So.
Yeah. So question.
Yeah.
How many have you ever seen a customer leave one of your companies where they had a high level of trust with your company?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and again, like I have.
So let me back that up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I need to restate it a different way. I haven't seen any customer of our customers, or our customers, for example,
Mm-hmm.
lose a customer when there was a high level of trust between them. Where the only time I've seen it is where the company had they got acquired and they had to adopt, this hospital got acquired, so they had to take the PACS to the EHR.
Yeah.
So when the client really, really trusts their vendor.
Yes.
I have not seen.
I would agree with that.
I've rarely seen anyone go, we're going to go in a different direction, because and so that's kind of where, as I've advised companies, it's something I've always talked to the executive teams, like, what are you doing to absolutely lock down trust in your customers? So that, because if they trust you, I think that's the highest level of compliment you can get in the stickiness factor, because it means they rely on you, because at the end of the day, it's really what they want. Right. I'm going to stay. Some other company may come out with a shinier new toy, but I'm not going to run off with them.
And to kind of spin back to what I was saying before, I have seen. I've been with vendors who had a customer, longtime customer, built trust with that customer, who shot that, out the door with, a set of business practices that really just did not combine anymore with that vendor or with that hospital, and they were gone. But you kind of dial into this idea of trust. Like, how are we building trust, right? How are we building trust in vendors? How are we building trust in AI? How are we building trust in marketing messaging? How are we building trust with the sales organization? Again, and I keep pulling it through, it's the empathy, right? And it's you have to develop that empathy based on your subject matter expertise. You have to build that empathy every day when you're walking into a hospital system and you're sitting down with a physician. They're building that empathy with their patients, right? So in my mind, that's the red thread, right? And if I've seen how customers, particularly in this space, who feel like that, their vendors no longer share the same goals, that line of empathy has been broken, that there is a distinct difference between, how we used to behave with each other and how we behave now. And it's a big, if you can't fake empathy, you really can't. You can say you do, and you can say you understand, but you really can't fake it. And your customer, whether they're in healthcare or otherwise, they can sense that, right? So the trust is hard. And it could be super small. It really doesn't matter. And it does not matter how many awards you have. That's the other thing.
100%. Don't get me started on the stupid industry awards.
Yeah.
It's like companies aren't even making the best decisions possible with their customers or the market, that their business almost changes. They try to map to some ranking or award they get. I'm like, who cares about external validation? I don't care. Like, it should be, nothing should be between me and my customer, or me and my market. I don't really care. These other things, they're data points and it's chatter. And a lot of times, if you look at the signal to noise ratio, it's the power of the signal divided by the power of the noise. Mm-hmm. Anything that increases the noise in the denominator, I don't want to listen to. And so you just don't have, everyone has such limited time and limited attention span. It's like, what is the most trusted source of information? And taking action based on that information. And it needs to be direct feedback from our customers, conversations with our customers, conversations at RSNA, at trade shows. That's it. Anything else should be viewed very, very as a distant second. But getting back to that trust thing, it's so critical because it gives you staying power in the market and staying power in customers, because if that they trust you that, hey, yeah, there's a new shiny toy out there. We don't know them. And our vendor, we trust them because we know they're going to get there. We know that they'll add that functionality over time. But hey, for the most part, when they say something's going to go live, we can trust them.
Yes.
If a problem happens, which it always happens, there's no one's perfect. There's always going to be a release that needs an extra patch or some bug fix or whatever happens. Hey, but hey, this vendor, like CMI, they're great at solving problems. They don't blame us. They jump on things quickly. So why would we go chase some other company? Like, we don't know. We're going into the dark. It sure looks good and cool. But so long as your product is a good product and you are making progress, then that's all that matters.
Right.
The people that get so overly obsessed in healthcare world, overly obsessed with the product. This is going to sound crazy. They're not long for this earth, because the relationship and the service is beyond crucial, because at any one point, someone else's technology is going to leapfrog. And if that's all you have to hang your hat on, like, we don't have the best service, we don't have the best price, and but our product's the best. The second someone leapfrog you, you have no staying power.
Right. And as I think back to this whole idea of building trust, I think the critical part of gaining trust is you need to be willing to ask the hard question, and you need to be willing to hear the hard answer, and you need to be able to figure out what your reaction is going to be. Like, you may not be able to react immediately, but you need to know that you need to have a plan to react, right? You need to ask the hard questions. It's easy to pat yourself on the back if you're only asking the easy questions, right? How likely are you to buy us again? Yes. Oh, that's an easy question, right?
That's a fine question to have is like a baseline, but boy, there's some other higher order ones.
This thing. And when they say we hate this thing, you need to be able to get off your humble horse and say, okay, let's dig into that, right? Because again, I'm building trust through empathy. I don't know everything. I'll never know everything I need to know. I need to learn from you. And making sure that you open that channel to say, tell me the worst. You won't hurt my feelings, is, I think, a really critical part of building trust. Otherwise, customers are just like, meh, meh, meh. Like, they're like, you're not asking me anything. You're not asking me anything in your survey that's actually going to help you as a vendor do better, right? You're just looking for someone to pat you on the back. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I want to get back to trade shows. So, because they are important, right? Like, it almost for nothing else, it shows that you have staying power. Like, you're not disappearing, because there's so much negative marketing. Like, even if you're kicking like serious butt, you're doing super well, customers are happy, you're growing really well. And if you don't, let's just say you don't have a booth, or you go from like a really big booth to like a 10 by 10, it's used against you, and it's kind of unfairly. But what are like best practices? Like, where's the real ROI at being, in terms of doing, when you're doing things that, what's the size of the booth, or the location of the booth, or the things that you're doing, or the meetings, or sponsoring, who knows what, breakout sessions. Where's the real ROI at RSNA?
Yeah. And it's there's been a shift, I would say, in the last 5 years. I don't think it was because of COVID, to be honest with you, but it may have been. But the shift right now is to smaller and really highly targeted, focused events. And these could be, for instance, small cardiac events that have like 250 attendees, right? There are still some shows, and RSNA is probably the only one I can think of at the moment, that you really have to be at. I, however, have seen companies doing things really in an interesting way when it comes to these shows. We call them the walk the floor activities, right? And, the WTF, I call it, and try not to swear at people when I say it. Yeah. But this idea that, what does presence mean? Does presence mean booth? Does presence mean a table at the Starbucks and a conversation? And I'm finding that ROI can come in both flavors, right? One of the things I really love about events, and this would be really for companies who are kind of in that startup phase, and this kind of goes back to the whole idea of how do you communicate and GDPR and all this sort of thing, is how do I make a big impact quickly, in a scalable way? How do I fill my database potentially with names and contacts that are reasonably tuned to what I need, so that I can then begin marketing and, talking to people about it and seeking feedback, right? So shows are great for that. And that's why I really like the big ones, just for that. If it's just about filling my own marketing funnel, let's call it, so that I can start having communication and conversations. But it's the small ones. And I would tell you right now that 90% of my event calendar this year is small. Very small, like less than 500 people small. And obviously, I also have this theory that your market will indicate whether they're interested in you before you get to a show. So if you drop into a show and it's your first day and you haven't done a good job leading up to that show in terms of reaching out and setting up meetings and setting up time, you're not going to have a great outcome in that show. There's not time. I mean, you have seen RSNA. People are literally running from one booth to the next, right? Yep. There's this sauntering thing that used to happen at these shows. Honestly, doesn't really happen as much anymore. It's really all about, setting up meetings, identifying the folks that you really want to see. So, I have my objective is always a 6 weeks policy, let's call it, before a show. How do we try to get our message in front of the eyes of those that we really want to talk to at the show? And how do we set up a meeting? And how do we have a full calendar of really valuable meetings before we even get on the plane? Right. So, it's, and that's where the ROI comes in. These shows are expensive. I mean, RSNA is at the top tier. I've worked for I've never worked for the big guys with the huge 2 booths, and it's probably a $3 million show for them.
Yeah. For sure.
But even in the small, it's still $500,000, by the time you're bringing people in. So it's a little bit like, the radiologist buying AI and trying to understand what the ROI is. Sometimes it's softer, right? Doesn't mean that you have to buy it, but sometimes it's a softer ROI. And
I've heard that a lot. Like most of our customers, and then tons of other people I'm talking to, they say that the regional, or even not even regional, like state or county level shows are like, it's just better. And of course, my question is always like, why is it better? And like, well, it's not just it's a local rep who's there, and the people aren't there to waste time. They're actual potential buyers.
Right.
Like they actually are.
They're coming to discover versus RSNA is a different flavor. It's a little bit of the Academy Awards of trade shows, and people are there for, and I say this with respect, but they're there for the spectacle as much as they are there for.
So how do they make it better, right? So like, to me, I look at like RSNA and HIMSS.
Yeah.
I've got a different view of health.
Yeah.
Just I've heard too much, like, is it a foreign life sciences show, or is it like a VC investor show? Like it's super glitzy, but they're like, don't even know what it is yet. So I'll stick to the more traditional ones.
Yeah.
So like your RSNA and your HIMSS, those kind of the bigger shows where it looks like it's like a big mall.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's, you're going to go hit your Nordstrom and your Dillard's and your whatever it is, and then you're just going to jump in between, but there's not a lot. It's just, there's too much going on. So what, if you could reform HIMSS or reform RSNA, how would you, besides making it cheaper, right? What's what everyone says, given what they are, what can they do to improve? Because that's something everybody wants to see.
So, what's interesting is that HIMSS and RSNA are two of the more expensive, from a vendor perspective, two of the more expensive
For sure.
to attend in. In my, just, what I've generally seen over the years, costs go up. Every year the cost goes up, and it doesn't seem to reduce the number of vendors who are going, right? So it almost doesn't seem to be a sticking point. The costs just keep going up. I don't know that, for instance, reducing the price would make it better. But I also feel like we're starting to lose the forest through the trees with some of these events. They're so big. Can we make them smaller? Can we convert into some type of regional event? Can RSNA, for instance, be like, the ASPNR of the world, like these small, little, really highly constructive events? Could they be? But I don't think so. I think they're so big now that they just can't go back. I do think, however, that especially for RSNA and for HIMSS, to be honest with you, I think they have leaned really, perhaps too far into the AI science fair project. And it's hard, again, like, is RSNA meeting these health systems and these physicians where they're at? And that's where I think there's some concern. I don't feel like they're doing enough to be much more well-rounded, right? But that's also to the vendors as well. I mean, they're all kind of jumping onto that bandwagon, and whether they have, for instance, AI or not, I mean, AI is on their side. So it's a challenging, it's a challenging space.
Yeah, to me, it's almost like looking at, like, what is the purpose of the show? So it has to be, the vendors are paying for what you need to do, basically what the vendors want. Like, sorry, clinicians.
Yeah.
You're not paying the bills for this. They are.
Yeah.
So, but it can also make it better for the attendees, the IT people, the radiologists, et cetera, because I know what HIMSS tried to do, right? And I think HIMSS and RSNA still do, like, here's the emerging tech pavilion or AI. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, that's saying, here's the SQL Server vendors. Here's the PL SQL Oracle vendor. Like, people don't think like that. It should be on, this is how I would do it if I was HIMSS. I'll make that a little easier. I'm saying, here are the big enterprise vendors. If you do EHR and you have a bunch of stuff, you're this part of the show floor. We're not stretching out, like, or Epic's way over here, Cerner's here. No, because that's a certain kind of buyer that are there. Now it's like, here's the coding. Anything dealing with HIM and coding, it's right here. Because people aren't there going, oh, I'm going to look for an EHR. It's not like going to the supermarket.
No,
I need some tomatoes. I need some beef. I got to get some chicken. Or I got to get a soda. You're like, no, no one does that. Well, maybe like 1%. I'm here. It's this focus area of rev cycle. Specific. Well, then have all those vendors there.
Yeah, I agree.
Say, well, yeah, but Cerner's not there. I'm like, that's fine, because anyone who's specifically looking, would ever consider an Oracle Health or an Epic solution for something, they're probably getting all of their menu.
Right.
So stay there. But here's the imaging informatics guys at HIMSS. There's their booth. I mean, here's their section. Because if there's some people that are like, you know what, there are 2 or 3 things I'm looking at. Because honestly, if you're looking at an EHR, you're probably looking at all their other crap.
Right.
This is a different thing. So they're over here. All right. We're looking for we needed better automated coding, and we're looking for some ambient listening technology, and we got to get something that's going to help our rads out at RSNA or at HIMSS rather. Yep. Okay. So you look at it and you're an attendee. You're like, I go to this section, this and this. Simple. And then you get way better conversations. The vendors get way better traffic and longer conversations rather than demo every 30 minutes. I'm like, no, someone who's coming to my booth, they're interested in coding. Their whole thing is to come here. I'm a coding vendor. I'm Maverick Medical. I'm NIM or whatever the heck they're called. And they can just spend, I'm going to be there for 90 minutes. And then the vendor's not like, we got to turn the tables. We got to get this guy out of here to get the next person in.
And imagine if we could bring back the idea of sauntering, right? I just want to walk. I just want to see, and I want to look, and I want to read their sign. But if I know that I have to run from the North Hall to the South Hall in order to, I want to go to this PACS vendor versus this PACS vendor, it's going to take me 25 minutes to walk in between the two. How do I saunter? Right. So
exactly. Radical inefficiency. And these trade shows don't map to the industries that they serve, where you're trying to help with efficiency. Now, whether it's to do more studies or they can just get through the ones they have so they can get home, whatever it is, efficiency is so critically important, because that's what, at the end of the day, software and technology is about automating something that was done manually. And AI is just taking existing software and making it even more efficient. So why in the world aren't the trade shows reflecting that reality of, because then there would be more sauntering. Like if I'm in the market for coding, I can just kind of walk around the coding area. I can take my time.
That's why the little ones work, right? Because small enough, you can saunter, right? That you can discover, that you can uncover, you can, but it's really challenging to do it in these big events. Just too many under one house. I mean, at least it's not as bad as it was like 15 years ago at RSNA when they had that whole other third hall that everyone had to work across.
A hall, B hall,
terrible.
C, D. I think the one time they had 4. It was A, B, C, D, and I'm like, and I'm done. Someone would say, and if you're in that one that was across the bridge, you'll say, Jeremy, I say, I'm sorry, man.
I'm not going.
Let's just do a call later. Like I can't make it over. I mean, how many cancellations happen because of that?
Oh, I know. Yeah, no, I know. And they always made one vendor, one big anchor vendor, be in that space across the bridge, and
no man's land.
But honestly, it's a great idea, because I think we just need to bring back the ability to just discover and not have to necessarily decide before I get on the plane to Chicago who I'm going to talk to. Maybe I want to talk to others and I don't even know who they are, right? So.
I love your idea about getting sauntering back.
Yeah.
But you can't saunter.
No,
there's no rhyme or reason. It's all based on how much your footprint and how much money you spend.
Right.
That's the only deciding factor about where something is. So you're like, I got to get to the Canon booth. Oh my gosh, I got to get all the way over to Microsoft now. Oh, I got to get, and you don't get to see any. And so all these poor little, and other mid-sized vendors or even big ones, doesn't matter. You're like, I really wanted to get over to Canon, but I can't. I'd probably say 30 to 35% completely wasted time having to navigate and just get to different appointments.
Right.
Just enormous amount of wasted opportunity.
Yeah. And when customers, like certainly before RSNA kind of starts, we'll be setting up meetings and we'll have health systems who want to come and visit us, but they're like, I only have an 11 o'clock slot, but the 10:30 slot that I'm in, I'm way in the back corner of the North Hall and you're in the back corner of the South Hall. And how do I get to you? Like, I'm going to have to cut that meeting short by 10 minutes and your meeting short by 10 minutes so I can race across, so it's
I mean, literally, if they don't change it, if I was a big vendor or a decent sized vendor, I would have wherever our main booth is, but instead of having like a 80 by 100, I'd have like a 40 by 40, and I would have way stations all across and just say, sorry, we'll just meet you at 17G or whatever it is. We'll just meet her. We have 10 by 10s all over the place. We'll have our rep go there. And because everything's in the cloud, we can pull it up. But just it's so it's still dumb. That's what I would do, but it's wasteful and more expensive.
For an industry that's focused on workflow and acceleration, and they really don't do it there.
So. Yeah, the problem is RSNA and HIMSS are like the government.
Yeah,
like you have all these serving these efficient or relatively efficiency focused entities on the vendor and the provider side, payer side, whatever it is. But then the thing that's running them is inefficient as the DMV.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Like, take a number. Oh my gosh. So I know we don't have a lot of time left. Is there anything that we should talk about? From a marketing perspective, from a future perspective, from a what should be done or what's being done that's stupid and should stop being done.
So just like a lot of industries, healthcare, and certainly us being one of them, I think there's always a focus on, or there's always this tremendous focus on the next big thing, right? AI, ChatGPT, how are we doing our creative? Are we using AI to do our creative? I think one of the things
I want to get back to that.
Yeah.
You just brought up something. Yes.
So, and perhaps it's my age, probably is my age, to be honest with you, but I still continue to lean into kind of the tried and true and really what works. And you and I talk about this all the time. I'm a big advocate for developing content that is valuable to our customers and valuable to the industry, and not just content like here's a brochure content, but content about, how do I demonstrate that I have empathy to this industry and to this physician, that type of content that they can use, that they can read, that they get off at 5 o'clock and they can, sit and have a coffee and read something. So, I always tell my team and my teams to don't get so carried up in these kind of shiny objects that are happening, in front of us, and forget, where we're at, like where our customers are at and where they want us to be. And so I that would be my biggest suggestion to my brethren here in this space. But yeah, for sure. But the whole AI, I mean, for fun, it's fun, right? But that's it.
Yeah. So the thing that I have, which is, I'm going to sound like a Luddite or Luddite. I don't know how to say that. Is it Luddite?
Luddite, yeah.
Luddite.
I think.
Weird. So I run a tech company in a tech industry, but I don't, for my team, I say, if you want to use AI, because we have automation tools internally, like to help build a quick table in product, in a database, right? Like, so why would you do that? Like ChatGPT or Grok or whatever is going to build a table way faster. And there's no nuance in it.
Yeah.
There's no creativity. You don't want creativity in the table,
right.
The database, right? Like let's not get nuts. But it's even in our marketing and our messaging and everything else. I'm saying kind of my rules internally, you can't use AI to write your email.
Right.
You can't use AI to write your LinkedIn post. Right. You can't use AI to write an X post or something on Instagram. Instagram doesn't really apply to us. And write your emails. You don't get to do that.
Right.
You can use it to fact check, to spell check, etc. Because I can tell every time someone writes to me, that's an email or even a text message. People use AI, or a LinkedIn message or post. You can tell it's soulless. There's no other way to put it. And I tell my team here, and we even talk to our customers, say, don't, like, for this message that's going out to the market. So customers use our platform and they want to go do a brand awareness study. Like, how are we perceived in the industry and in our segment? Do people know about us and know what we do? And they're writing the messaging and they use AI, can read it. And I'm like, that is not effective.
Yeah.
I don't know where you got that. Like, don't allow what makes humans unique, which is our creativity and our imagination. If you turn to AI, you will atrophy. And so people can tell they can't even articulate why.
Yep.
But it's like when you come across someone. There's a great book by Gavin de Becker called The Gift of Fear.
Yeah.
And it's specifically for women to say, hey, don't be nice. If you feel something isn't right, scream, yell, don't turn off that innate part of your protective mechanisms, mammalian brain from millions of years ago. It's like, this is danger. I can't describe why this guy is making me nervous. Don't worry about being polite. Don't turn that off. And it's the same thing with this AI generated content. I look at it as so soulless. And so my team is, and I try to tell customers, don't fall into the trap.
Oh yeah. So, and so imagine, take all of what you just said and imagine the physician who's using AI. Is it quite there? Do you know why it's quite not right? Like, can you see it? Can you see the disconnect? And because it'll never work as fast as our own sort of educated brains. But I will tell you the one thing that I do use it for, which I have found. So I would say that I'm a writer. The red thread for me through my career has been writing. And it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice to get good at it and get really good at it and then edit and that sort of thing. But the one thing that I've really enjoyed using it for is clarity, because I remember once someone saying to me, Renee, you are very verbose in your writing, that you are a storyteller at heart.
Same here.
It's not that I don't get to the point quickly, it's that I'm setting the story up, right? So I will write something and I will just literally shoot it through ChatGPT. And the question I ask Chat is, tell me what I'm saying. And then I put it in there, right?
Yes.
So and not that, Chat is the only voice of dissension here, but if Chat can look at what I'm writing and say, I think what you're saying is this. And if I like that, what that perception is, it's like, good, because that was what I was trying to say. That's what I was.
But that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be Jiminy the Cricket on your shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's not doing the action. He's someone you can turn to and be like, hey, does that make sense? Is this concise? Can you summarize this? Am I being too redundant? Because I'm very redundant.
And I'm the same. Yeah.
I'll repeat a story multiple times because I'll say it and then I'll kind of say it again and say it because I finally get to the point.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the issue.
Yeah. That's what I like.
It's one of the reasons why I'm a little concerned with kids in like 7-8 years who will have auto driving cars and they'll never actually learn how to drive. Yeah. It's like another thing that you used to have to overcome and learn. There's something about having to do a hard thing, being embarrassed, being scared. It develops you. Same thing. The best companies were born through fire. The best people went through trials, et cetera. And if we keep eliminating yet another thing, well, that's so boring. I don't know. I got to write this out. I'm like, because you need to practice. You got to develop that muscle of creativity 100%. And the grind. If we take away the grind, I'm just worried we're going to see where I'm already seeing so much vanilla. It's the reason we started this conversation. It's like chiasmus. And from the beginning, it's bland, boring, repetitive, almost homogenous.
Yeah. Vanilla pudding. We used to call it vanilla pudding.
Yeah. So you're using ChatGPT and AI the way it's actually supposed to be used. It is not a replacement.
No.
It's an enhancement productivity tool. Well, I love that. I've never thought about that before. I may have to steal it from you, but that's great. Write something, put it in, ask it, what are you getting from? What's the summary? What is it telling you? And if it gets it pretty accurate, then you're like, okay, great. Or
right?
If it says something else, you're like, oh, I got rambling again, didn't I? I guess I should make it more concise.
Exactly. But honestly, like, I'll use a good word, crap in, crap out, right? So if you don't properly, you need to learn how to ask the proper questions with Chat. Like it's learning from you as much as you are trying to derive from it, right? So if you need to learn how to question it, how to create your questions. I mean, you literally need to explain to it like it's, a 12-month-old baby from Mars, and you're trying to explain to it, what a tree is, right? So you need to tune it. And so I have found when I first started using it, my daughter would say, "Oh, it just uses flowery words." That was the best way I could describe it. Flowery words. Everything was a flowery word. And I would literally go in and say, "Relook at this and stop using flowery words." It was the only way I could use to, direct it. But so I find now that it is, I've gotten to a point where it's kind of tuned to my voice. So not only will it tell me, it'll almost mark me. It'll say, "This thing that you've just written, it doesn't make sense in this paragraph because you've said it 4 times. You're being redundant here, and you may want to think about it." So it does help me to edit, but I would never start it, from the beginning. And I'm also kind of, that whole idea of what information am I putting in there? Where is it sitting? Who's accessing it?
And that's what I'm kind of waiting for.
Yeah.
I want, and we're kind of developing our own in our platform, because it's almost like, hey, as a certain company does more and more market research, customer research, et cetera, the large language model should be based just on their customer interactions and their market interactions, partner interactions, making them better. It doesn't really help somebody else's.
Right.
There's not much. Some could be learned, but there's so much unique, specific things about that company, its culture, its customers, et cetera. So I want one, even not just from a security perspective, but I want almost like a local. It's my section of the server. It's literally just me. I don't care about it, that it learned something from Renee or John, or I just don't care. Like, I'd rather take the time and have it learn a lot better on the only things I care about. And so there is a little bit of the security thing, because I still, Google and these other guys have done enough stuff where things get leaked and they do learn about you, and stuff about you gets de-identified, but they can track it back. So I'm kind of like you in that way. I'm like, ugh.
So, what's interesting, over the weekend, I was on LinkedIn, and one of my contacts, I don't think it was you, Jeremy, one of my contacts actually put something out on LinkedIn and said, try going into LinkedIn, or try going into ChatGPT and ask it, "What do you know about me?"
It wasn't me.
It wasn't you. And I was like, ooh, that's a really interesting but slightly scary. So I typed in, "What do you know about me?" And it was, first of all, it was surprisingly like vanilla pudding. It was like, "You work in healthcare. You like software." I was like, "Oh, all right. Okay." So I was worried, but it is interesting. I mean, I think if I was a huge user of it, that question might worry me, about, what is it storing about me? Right. But
and it's interesting. I work with a lot of youth in my church, like mentoring and stuff like that. And so a part of it isn't just their like spiritual or social, it's like their business world. And I tell all of them, hey, if you're going to go in the white collar space, you're going to be dealing with AI.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to be able to have a really great career going forward is if you're really, really good.
Yeah.
Like, AI will help you
if
you work really hard, you're creative, thoughtful, passionate about what you're doing. You'll thrive in the world of AI.
Yep.
If you're not, there's no use. Because if I have someone working for me who's just an average bookkeeper, whatever, I'm like, I'm sorry, AI can do your job.
Yep.
I can hire someone who could do 2 or 3 of these things, give them a co-pilot or a digital assistant for each one this is a legal expert, this is an accounting expert, it's whatever. But to get super creative and now meld that into strategy for my business, AI can never do that.
Right.
At least not anytime next 10, 15 years. So if you aren't, and that's everybody, and that's where the whole thing is, have AI do those mundane things that are just mind-numbingly dumb.
Yep.
Do it, right? But nothing for me. I cannot. I don't want to take weights off the bar.
Yep. Well, and
I'm not going to get stronger if I keep taking weights off the bar.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, geez, this is,
And if it's, I love how you just said that, because that is exactly what the industry has been saying into the healthcare space, into the physician, and we'll talk about radiologists, but that's what we say to radiologists, right? So this is, this is not replacing you. And I don't think anyone actually believes that they would be replaced, but there is not one radiologist out there that I think could be outdone by AI. And I think AI is the Jiminy Cricket, which is great. But there's this, we'll call it soul piece of the radiologist that can't be replicated by AI, that can't produce like the timing and the results and the conscious level kind of effort that the radiologist can do. And I think, one of the challenges AI companies are seeing now and experiencing now is that they're trying to replace a diagnostic level opportunity. May not even be a challenge, but an opportunity.
Yeah.
Where imagine if 6 years ago, AI was really focused on things like, how do we get scheduling right? How do we get paperwork right? How do we get this administrative part that takes up so much time? How do we get that right? And allow the radiologist and the physician to do the things that they're good at, that they love to do, that they're creative about, that they're confident about, that they're educated for. Like, how do we take that part off and use AI to do that? So I think 6 years ago, if we were using AI to do that, I think physicians would be much further ahead today. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, this has been it's been really good. We'll have to have you on sometime. I'll include your LinkedIn. We'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes, in the details page in YouTube.
Is there going to be an Easter egg like a Marvel? I think you should do an Easter egg.
We could. And then I don't know if there's, send me any other links to things. I'll put it obviously to Canon Medical Informatics site, your LinkedIn. If there's any other links to anything you want included, we'll do that. But this has been this might be my funnest yet.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. This is honestly, it's my first podcast, so it's been a lot of fun. I wasn't really sure where it was going to go, but it's been a lot of fun. So, yeah.